Exchange of information. Exchange of information is an international arrangement that enables mutual sharing of tax information among tax authorities in order to curb tax evasion and avoidance schemes across borders. Uganda has hence put in place a mechanism for exchange of information with countries it has signed treaties or agreements with. The legal basis for exchange of information (EOI) is provided under the Double Taxation Agreements (DTAs), Agreements on Mutual Administrative Assistance in Tax Matters, Tax Information Exchange Agreements, and domestic tax laws. The examples of information that can be exchanged under EOI include income and capital earned or owned by taxpayers, bank information, transfer pricing or ownership information, copies of tax returns, accounting records, e.g. contracts and invoices. The exchange of information process. Exchange of information between tax officers and foreign counterparts is not allowed unless it is done through a designated competent authority. For Uganda, the Honourable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development delegated the responsibilities of the competent authority for exchange of information to the Commissioner General of Uganda Revenue Authority. The competent authority also designated the Exchange of Information Unit under the Tax Investigations Department as a central point to coordinate and assist in strict observance of confidentiality principles and effective and efficient information exchange in line with the best international practices. The exchange of information process covers both outgoing and incoming requests. Outgoing requests. These are requests for information from URA to other tax jurisdictions generated during tax compliance reviews. Where a requesting party finds a need to verify or seek extra information from any source outside Uganda, an internal request for information is prepared and sent to the Exchange of Information Unit. The criteria for generating a request includes 1. Evidence showing that all other efforts to obtain the required information in Uganda have been exhausted and found futile. 2. The request must be relevant to an ongoing compliance case. 3. There must be a mutual agreement with the country where the request is to be sent. The EOI unit quality assures the requested information in line with best international standards, completes the request for information template, and forwards it to the head Tax Investigations Department for approval. When the request is satisfactory, it is then forwarded by the head Tax Investigations Department to Commissioner General, who is the competent authority for signing. The signed request is sent back to the EOI unit for dispatch to the relevant tax jurisdiction. The EOI unit maintains contact with the tax jurisdiction where the request was sent for follow-up on the expected feedback, which, if obtained, is then disseminated to the relevant compliance units. Both treaty partners have the obligation to maintain information exchanged as confidential. Incoming requests. These are requests that come to Uganda from foreign tax jurisdictions. The incoming requests are sent directly to the competent authority, who is the Commissioner General. The Commissioner General then sends the request to the head of Tax Investigations Department, who assigns the responsibility of execution to the Exchange of Information Unit. The Exchange of Information Unit registers the request and allocates it a reference number. The unit then prepares an acknowledgement of receipt notification, which is sent to the requesting tax jurisdiction. The Exchange of Information Unit further validates the request to ensure that it meets the international standards and whether the request has been signed by the competent authority. An action plan is developed for a valid request. Collection of information then commences. The URA database has two data sources, one being the e-tax system automated tax system, and the other is the automated system for customs. Third parties provide information which is not in the URA database but is possessed by other parties like banks, company registry, immigration, etc. The concerned third party must provide the information within 7 days in accordance with the powers to obtain information under the domestic laws. As and when the information is obtained, it is compiled and feedback is provided to the relevant tax jurisdiction according to the relevant procedures. It is only after all requested information is provided that the case is closed. Where information cannot be obtained, then feedback in this respect is provided to the requesting jurisdiction. The EOI unit maintains contact with the requesting tax authority in case further inquiries on the information is required. The requesting party has the obligation to maintain information received from a treaty partner as confidential. All information received should only be used for the purposes provided for in the relevant treaty. Breach of this confidentiality is an offence as provided under the EOI agreements as well as the relevant domestic law. Outgoing request for EOI process flow. Compliance unit sends information request on the EOI template to EOI unit. EOI unit receives the request. Request checked for validity and completeness. If request is invalid, return to originating section. Valid request is checked for completeness. If request is incomplete, EOI unit holds a meeting with the compliance unit to obtain more information. A complete request is quality assured by EOI unit and sent to the head Tax Investigations Department for approval. Is the request sufficient? If not, request is returned to EOI unit for revision. A sufficient request is approved by the head Tax Investigations Department. It is then forwarded by the head Tax Investigations Department to CG for signing. Request signed by the CG and sent back to EOI for dispatch. The EOI unit dispatches the request to the treaty partner. Incoming EOI process flow. EOI request received by competent authority, delegated to EOI team. Validate and determine category of the request. For an invalid request or if the treaty/agreement does not exist, draft response to requesting party and close case. Response sent to requesting party. For a valid information request, register the request. Assign reference number and secure request. Acknowledge receipt of request. Study and place information request to relevant sources. Feedback on information request from sources. Compile and review information. Is information sufficient? If not, return to source. If information is sufficient, draft response letter with attached information. Append security, classification and stamp. CA signs of response to the request. Response sent to requesting party.